Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day. Welcome to Advanced Pharmacology AHBS 437A. Congratulations for selecting this course as your elective course for research pathway. Okay. So I'll be the coordinator for this course. So if you have any problem, just WhatsApp me or email me. The first topic of advanced pharmacology is drug development. So in this topic, we're going to discuss the development process of a drug. Okay, what does it happen from nothing into a marketable drug that we have in the pharmacies, in the hospitals and whatnot. Okay, so the whole process that is happening from nothing into a drug. So for this topic, I will divide into three main topics: the drug development process, and then the second one is various approaches to drug discovery, and then under that we have preclinical, and under preclinical we have pharmacological approach and toxicological approaches to drug discovery, and then another approach to drug discovery is clinical. So we have preclinical and clinical. And then the third topic is ethical codes for clinical trial. All right, let's go to the first topic, the drug development process. Most drugs have unexpected pleasant surprises. So along the way, when you want to develop a drug from nothing into a marketable drug, you have to go through a lot of experiments, a lot of tests, a lot of unexpected outcomes. So along the way, there may be also outcomes that will make you stop from proceeding to the next step because it has no effectiveness on the drug itself. So there will be many pleasant and also unpleasant surprises actually. Alright, as the introduction, drug development is the process of bringing a new pharmaceutical drug to the market once a lead compound has been identified through the process of drug discovery. So this is the summary of what drug development means. Okay, what drug development process means. So it's a process of bringing a new drug to the market once a lead compound has been identified. So I'm sure you have learned about lead compound, about heats, about screening. I think you have learned that in pharmaceutical science, and I taught that topic. So if you don't remember, please revisit the lecture for pharmaceutical science. So the process of bringing a new drug to the market. Okay, and this includes preclinical research on microorganisms and and animals filing for regulatory status, such as via the US FDA, for an investigational new drug to initiate clinical trials on humans, and may include the step of obtaining regulatory approval with a new drug application to market the drug. Okay, so the process of drug development involves many steps, many processes, or many things lah. Okay, that includes the preclinical research. So preclinical research are the researches that you do before you introduce the drug into humans. It can be done either on microorganisms or either on the receptors itself, or also on the animals. And then after you have a concrete evidence that you think the drug that you are studying will be going to give a pharmacological effect, a desirable pharmacological effect on patients, then you would propose to regulatory bodies to run clinical trials. So clinical trials are the experiments that you do on human beings. And then after you get the results from the clinical trials, then you would want to market the drug, and you have to contact relevant regulatory bodies to market your drug. So in our case in Malaysia, it is the NPRA, the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency. Modern drug discovery involves the identification of screening hits, medicinal chemistry, and optimization of those hits to increase their affinity, selectivity, efficacy, potency, metabolic stability, and oral bioavailability. So the first step of a drug development process is identification of screening hits. So actually before that, you have to prepare maybe it's called a preparation for the identification. So say you want to focus on a disease, and then you have to know the pathology of the disease. How does it happen? How does it progress? How does it progress from the from the etiology until the disease progresses. So you have to know all the biochemical pathways. You have to know all the receptors, proteins involved in the progression or in the pathology of the disease. Then once you identify the protein or receptors that you want to study about, then you screen for compounds. So the screening of the compounds, it can be a screening involving tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So in the past, the screening of compounds happened in the wet lab. Is an actual experiment, biochemical or biological assays, to see if the compound has any effect on the receptor that you are studying. But now with the existence of computers, with the existence of artificial intelligence and whatnot, then this process can be substituted with virtual screening using software such as molecular docking. So the screening, so the use of the virtual screening, it really expedites the process, one, and then it really saves the cost. And then medicinal chemistry. So medicinal chemistry is a field of study whereby you modify, once you identify the potential compounds to be developed into drugs, then you want to try to modify the chemical structure to optimize the compounds, to increase the affinity, selectivity, efficacy, and so on and so forth. So medicinal chemistry is actually a field of study that is used to optimize the potential compounds that you have identified during the screening. Then once a compound that fulfills all of these requirements has been identified, it will begin the process of drug development prior to clinical trials. So once you have the hit compounds, then you do the next step, which is the experiments on the receptors itself, and then experiments on the cells that express the receptor, and and also on the animals. And then once you have that concrete evidence, then you can proceed to the clinical trials. One or more of these steps may, but not necessarily, involve computer-aided drug design, as I mentioned earlier. Modern drug discovery is thus usually a capital-intensive process that involves large investments by pharmaceutical industry corporations, as well as national governments who provide grants and loan guarantees. So you can see the length of a project, or the length of a drug development process. And of course, it's going to consume a lot of money. You have to have a strong financial strength. Then you can do this drug development process. And that's why when a drug is marketed, it is marketed at a quite expensive price, because it also takes account all of the investment that has been made by the companies and so on. Despite advances in technology and understanding of biological systems, drug discovery is still a lengthy, expensive, difficult, and inefficient process with low rate of new therapeutic discovery. Okay, still, with all the technologies that we have, is still a lengthy process. In 2010, the research and development cost of each new molecular entity was about 1.8 billion US dollar. Okay, just one drug. Just one drug. Drug discovery is done by pharmaceutical companies with research assistance from universities. The final product of drug discovery is a patent on the potential drug. The drug requires very expensive phase 1, 2, 3 clinical trials, and most of them fail. Okay, even though you have a concrete evidence in the preclinical testing in the animals, in the cells, and whatnot, even though you have a concrete evidence that it's going to work, but once you go to the clinical trials, which is the experiments on human, then you would see many surprises. Okay, and most of the drugs actually fail at this stage. It's either phase 1 or 2 or 3, and many reasons that can contribute to this. For example, ineffectiveness of the drug. Before that, you see that the drug is effective on animals, but once you go to the human, it behaves differently. That happens actually. And then a new drug is producing a lot of serious side effects. And third example is the drug is just not highly efficient compared to the existing drug, yet the cost of production is high. So why do you want to introduce a new drug if it is just as effective as the existing drug, but then the cost of production is high? So of course you want to turn it down. So there are a lot of reasons that can contribute to this. Small companies have a clinical role, often then selling the rights to larger companies that have the resources to run the clinical trials. Okay, so small companies run the preclinical experiments, and then once they want to go to the clinical trials, then they sell the rights to larger companies because larger companies have bigger funds. Discovering drugs that may be a commercial success or a public health success involves a complex interaction between investors, industry, academia, patent laws, regulatory exclusivity, marketing, and the need to balance secrecy with communication. So it's a very complicated process involving many parties, many authorities. Meanwhile, for disorders whose rarity means that no large commercial success or public health effect can be expected, the orphan drug funding process ensures that people who experience those disorders can have some hope of pharmacotherapeutic advances. So for rare diseases, most pharmaceutical companies, large pharmaceutical companies, don't want to go into that route because it's not going to profit. Okay, the profit margin is very small because the disease is rare, and that's why the WHO have the orphan drug funding. Okay, to focus on these rare diseases.